Okay, so I'm very pleased to introduce you now to Kenli. She did go to school here at Punahou all the years from K through 12, and then she went on to University of Buckingham, studied economics, got her bachelor's there, and then her master's at the London School of Economics. And she's been living down in Chile for several years. Her primary interest is Billy and salsa, but her other interests have been the kind of things she'll be talking about now. So let's welcome Kenli for this reading.
Thank you. Is it okay if I sit?
I don't
It's
know.
not a microphone.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, maybe.
You can sit. Yeah, you can sit.
How do you? Would you feel comfortable standing?
I feel better sitting so I don't fidget
Okay.
too much.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But if you can't, silly.
I'm
Yeah, I might end up dancing salsa if I stand. So it's. Yeah, and also since I've been living in Chile for the last 2 years, if I forget or confuse a word, please make sure to bear with me. So, yeah. Okay. So today I'll be talking about digital marketing and how I see that it's revolutionizing the world of education. I've been writing about education for a long time. Actually, when I was 14, I won an essay contest with the Grassroots Institute about how bad the education system was in Hawaii. Because I saw that the public school system that eliminated choice did a lot of damage to the opportunities for kids out there. So I'm constantly watching it. I haven't been as involved with grassroots or think tanks lately, but now I'm in my regular work and things that I'm doing, I'm starting to see how things are changing, and I'm quite excited about it. No, you can't hear me? Okay. Okay, maybe I'll stand up then. You might. Okay. So to get started, let me just tell you a brief story about some of the rise of education or government loans for education in the U.S. I'll take you back to 1957. 1957. A time when one late night, people across America came out into their backyards, kind of like we are today, and looked up into the sky. And then people saw a tiny little dot traveling across the sky, a little blip making its way across the expanse of Earth. It was just a tiny dot, but it somehow struck terror into the hearts of the Americans that saw it, because it was Sputnik. It was the first satellite to successfully been launched into the Earth's atmosphere. Seeing that, people realized were suddenly threatened. They felt if the Soviet Union can be beating us in space, they can beat us in science. What's next? Maybe the Reds can outdevelop and outsmart the almighty U.S. So as this terror spread across the nation, people started to fight for the concept of having more university. Within a year, the National Defense Education Act was passed that introduced the federal Perkins student loans, which introduced low interest, long-term loans for low-income people focused on the subjects of math and science, which were clearly the subjects that would help national defense and beating those Reds. Within 10 years, another law was passed, the Higher Education Act, which expanded the subjects that the federal grants would be available to all subjects, not just these core maths and sciences. Fast forward another 10 years, and the Middle Income Student Assistance Act was passed, which then eliminated the income restrictions. So all of a sudden, federal aid was being given to people of all income levels and to study any subject. So let me just ask you guys really quickly. When you were 18, what did you want to do? Any volunteers? Yeah? That wasn't too long ago, I guess. Yeah.
It hasn't been that long. I'm pretty sure at 18, that was before my internship in the laboratory, and I was still convinced I would make a great molecular biologist. Before I went to intern at a laboratory, and it turned out to be sneezingly boring.
All right.
I gave up that idea. Yeah.
Okay. Craig, what did you want to be at 18? Uh-huh. A welder. Okay. Very glamorous life, yeah. Anyone else?
A park ranger.
A park ranger. Okay. That was actually fun fact. My father took a career test when he was just out of college, and it told him that his ideal occupation was to be a forest park ranger. Oh my goodness. Yeah, pretty much. He trims. No, not even. Okay, so think about, for all of you who didn't say anything, think about what you wanted at 18. Would you take a $200,000 bet that that's what you wanted to do 10 years later? Or for the rest of your life?
I'd
Yeah.
take the money.
That's part of the problem.
Yeah, so that, it sounds ridiculous. What if someone else spotted the money? Someone else said, just, why don't you try it? I'll cover it. Slightly different, but okay, so that's kind of what's happened here. With these federal loans, people started to take gambles. They started to bet on what they wanted to do for the rest of their lives with no money down, no stake in the game. I mean, it sounds like a great concept, but then the consequences are quite severe, as we're seeing now. Today, the average high school student goes automatically into college without a second thought. Their parents tell them that that's what they need to get a good job, get a better life than they had. And even though a lot of them don't have any idea what they want to do, or just a vague idea, their college counselor says, "Don't worry about it. You'll figure it out after a couple classes. Just try it out in your prereqs, and then you'll know what you want to do after that." A lot of times they still don't. 2 years later, they may still be have an undeclared major, but the pressure's running. If they don't choose something now, they're not going to graduate, or they're going to have to extend their college. So they have to choose something. So maybe they'll choose the best class that they had that semester. Maybe they took Spanish. It was a fun class. We got to watch Spanish movies and eat salsa. I don't know, but that works. And so 2 years later, because they only decide later on, they have a degree and in a subject that they only picked kind of half-heartedly, and have $50,000 in debt. Now, at that point, they have to find a job quite quickly to start paying this off. Otherwise, it hurts their credit score, all kinds of things. And they're starting to realize that jobs aren't quite as easy to find. Their college counselor said, well, don't worry, if you get a broad degree, that will leave tons of options open to you. But tons of options is starting to feel like no options amongst the increased supply of graduates with record attendance, and also the fact that there's no real specialization. So now, $50,000 in debt. Actually, the average debt is $35,000, though there are many that graduate with much more, given that a college degree for 4 years can be upwards of $200,000. And this is debt that sticks with you. It's one of the only types of debt that you cannot, what's the word again? Well, you can't you can't fold it. So it's stuck with you no matter what. This leads a lot of people to take, again, rush decisions under pressure. They take whatever job's available to them, not necessarily what they're trained for, not necessarily their ideal or something that leads them in the path they might want. They just take something to help cover them. This, as a result, recently a report showed that Millennials, on average, earn 20% less than their parents did at the same age. Even the Federal Reserve has noted that an increasing number of young people these days are moving back in with their parents than in previous generations, clearly reversing a trend of upward income mobility and independence that we had been seeing for previous generations. And yeah, so clearly all these promises of college are not panning out. The idea of having a better life than your parents, being trained for a job. How many here, after you finished your college graduation, feel like you were adequately prepared for your first job? Like you did not need someone to guide you at all. You were ready. You were, okay. For welding? No. Okay.
We thought we were.
Yeah, we thought we were. But most people don't end up. And so while this might sound like an unfortunate consequence of a well-intentioned government program, the reality lies in the government's own balance sheets. Looking at the 2015 financial statement, federal government's financial statement, you'll find that their number one asset that they list are loans that are owed to them, amounting to $1.2 trillion. No small sum. And next to that, on the official statement, in brackets, it says primarily student loans. So nearly 37% of the government's written assets, tangible assets, are student loans that are owed to them. So unpaid loans, but ones that you cannot get rid of. Yeah, discharge. Yes, thank you. Keep thinking dispatch. And so, yeah, you may be able to default on your private creditor, but you can't default on the government for that. So that also shows where their incentives are. They don't have an incentive necessarily to get rid of this system because it is a solid source of income for them. Yeah, so while this might sound like a sad story, I'm here with optimism, as always, because I see great changes. So online, okay, once upon a time we would have been sitting around here and we might have debated some of the deep questions in life, like maybe how long do you think it takes to get to the moon? How many animals are there out there in the ocean? You know, and you'd sit and you'd debate and question. Now, someone asks the question, you just Google it. You have the answer right there. Why ponder? Why argue? Just find an answer. And that's more and more the case. We see all kinds of resources online. Not just as simple as a number fact, but also any kind of question. Want to fix your sink? You can just Google it. You want to figure out how to...
I don't have Google. That's why.
You want to find out how to make a woman fall in love with you? It's on Google as well. At least a YouTube video. Salsa dancing, yeah. So while there are many resources, and there's a lot of educational platforms, including the Khan Academy, one that I love. It was created by a father who created little video tutorials or like map things out for his kids, and then it turned out to be so popular because he just explained things so well that it took off, and you can find things in all subjects. There's Coursera, which are courses that are created by universities themselves, so you can get a glimpse. You can actually take courses from an MIT classroom without paying the $46,000 annual tuition fee. And up to Udemy, where it's sort of a free platform where all kinds of different people can provide different talents. But so while these platforms are doing a great job in offering different courses and helping educate the populace, there's another type of education that I'm seeing grow online that is often not noticed. And that comes from the form of digital marketing. And so I'm sure you've all seen maybe an ad that says like, earn $15,000 in passive income from your home, from your living room, and all these things. So that's a glimpse. That's a cheesy glimpse of it. But it's actually part of a formula in a way that people can make money online or to market their businesses, regular sound businesses. And in this way that people are being taught now to market themselves, it is actually creating a huge educational service that I can see across the line. So, and it's bringing back a feature of education that we used to have prior to compulsory public school education and the modern age universities, which is apprenticeship. So, to explain about apprenticeship, I'm sure everyone knows, but I want to bring up my favorite movie, one of my favorite movies. Who here's watched Ip Man? Anyone? No? Ip Man. It's a series of martial arts movies, and Ip Man's the man who taught Bruce Lee. So he's a legend. And I've watched all of the movies far too many times. But there's a clip in the second movie where he's just moved to Hong Kong, and he's put up flyers all around the city advertising his business that he teaches. But no one responds. He's no one there. Before, in his previous town, in Foshan, everyone knew him. Everyone loved him. People came from all over to see him. But in Hong Kong, no one knew him. One day, though, a kid comes in with his flyer and says, this says that you know martial arts. What do you know? Fight me so I can see. And so Ip Man, he's not used to having to defend himself because he was a legend back there. So he's just like, whatever. But the kid insists, so he challenges him. In a matter of 3 moves, Ip Man has him on the floor, bruised and embarrassed. And without saying anything, the kid dashes away. Okay, all right. The next day he comes back with 3 more people, 3 more kids. And they all challenge him. 3 against 1. Same thing, gone in the matter of seconds. And so Ip Man's ready for them to just go away. He thought, they're ashamed, they're not going to do anything. But suddenly they stand up, they all drop to their knees and say, please take us as your disciple. Right? So this is how things, that's more of an extreme version, but this is kind of how things happened long time ago in the form of apprenticeship. You would find someone that you admired, someone that you liked what they were doing, or you thought that you could learn from them, and you'd offer to be their apprentice. You would learn from them, you would follow them, you'd learn daily, and you'd get a lot of individual attention. Sometimes that individual attention would be bad, but at least you were guided very clearly along the path. And so this concept of apprenticeship, I'm starting to see online.
John, that's your phone.
What's that?
That's your phone.
And so when you think about people that you see online, a lot of them, in order to sell something or to become a presence, to sell a course, to sell anything really, you need to establish a reputation. You need to build your presence. Actually, wait. Let me explain this to you through some of the cores of how this online business works, and then we can see how it affects education. If you will work with me and try to see how these are educational concepts. So if you have a course online, you want to teach people, let's say you're an economics professor. Let's see how this works. You have a course online.
Pure fiction.
Yeah. And so you want to establish your reputation. So to do this, in order to do this, you need to sort of write regularly, create content, teach people about your subject, show them little bits to even get them interested in the first place. And you need to show where you've done things, all these kinds of things to build your reputation. Then, if you want to actually make money, you do keyword research. That's one of the first steps. You want to do research into what other people are looking for. What are people's actual problems? What are they looking for solutions for? Because you don't want to waste your time talking all about something that no one actually cares about. Right? Then you have to work on great content. That's back to what I was saying just then about you want to create content that educates people. on those solutions. You show them. So if people are asking questions about, like, what is money? What is the dollar? Why is inflation? Why do prices keep going up? You could write an article about that, so that when people who have these questions, they look, then they can come across your answers, and then they can become familiar with you. This is basic, what's called SEO, or search engine optimization, which is the concept of trying to write articles and design them to answer questions online and to appear higher when people search for you. And this is actually the key here, because previously there were a lot of gimmicky sites that would have a great headline and something, but then have no real value. But Google, over the last few years, has been working really hard to improve people's search experience, so that if they have a question, that the first few things actually answer those questions. You may disagree, but that's what they're trying to do. And this is actually having a huge impact on all the websites out there, and all of marketing, because you can't use as many tricks anymore to get yourself up there, just buying links from other sites and things. Most marketers now just say, forget any tricks, just create good content, just educate, actually answer these questions that people are looking for. Because if you click on the link and see that it's a very blatant ad, you're more likely to bounce away from the page. And Google's algorithms punish this, and you'll be put lower and lower down. So they're constantly filtering for good content. And so now, in order to market, you actually have to provide value. You have to teach people and train people and show them about solutions. Oftentimes you'll see, for those businesses that understand, like a website business will show you that their competitors, they'll have a list, the top sites for building a website, but then they'll have not just their own website, they put all the others, maybe they'll talk a little bit better of theirs, but the point, this works out better than just talking about their own product. So things like this is like the surface level free education that we're starting to see a lot more in abundance of, because it's the basic for any type of marketing, of a course, of a product, of a person, anything. Next comes great headlines, very similar, but I want to bring courses. It's not good enough to just have a good course on a platform like Udemy or on the website anywhere. No one's going to click it. No one's going to open it if it's not an intriguing title. And so I compare this to what we learned, what the course lists we would have in school. So you have Finance 101. You're like, what is that? I mean, something about money, maybe, but there's no real anything that calls out to you. But online, it's a whole different issue. They'll have to have something specific, a specific topic or a specific benefit that you'll get from it. So it'll say, like, how to find investors, willing and able investors in your area, something like that, investment. Or, how to understand these trends in stocks, or they really focus on specific events, or specific skills. I mean, think about it, even in the salsa world, because we were thinking about doing some courses, so I was thinking a lot about titles for that. If you go to an academy, it'll say beginner salsa, intermediate salsa, advanced salsa. Online, if you actually want to sell something, you need to say how to look good on the dance floor in 4 lessons. Because beginner salsa could mean anything. Like, it doesn't describe anything to you. And so, okay, I know that sounds a bit gimmicky, but it actually makes a difference for the customer, the client, the student, because as a creator of content, it changes how you think. You actually have to design a course that fits that promise, that fits the title, and it changes how you think. You don't just sit down and, what do I know about finance? And you just write about whatever you want. You actually think, what do people want to learn? Let me teach them how to do that. You have to teach them a skill. You have to teach them something that'll get them to their end goal. And so, again, like, it may sound cheesy and you see these things, but I see that this is a positive. I see how it's shaping, it's bringing the focus back to students. And, lastly, testimonials. Another core of having any online presence of reputation is to have testimonials, to get people like Rebecca to say, like, this was such a moving class. This teacher opened my eyes to the world of economics, or, you know,
Can I pay her?
Yeah. So yes, I mean, some may be fabricated, but real ones, I mean, there's different formats, there's different platforms for it, but again, I see that as a way that teachers have to show that they're actually providing a benefit to their students, making them actually conscious that they get something from it. Whereas a lot of times teachers may not care. My father as an exception, of course. But I think back to how many teachers I've had that, number one, name the class, doesn't matter what you want. It's on the curriculum. I have to teach History 101. And I'm just going to sit here and ramble at you. Because you have to do it. It's one of your prereqs. It's something there, and it doesn't matter what happens after you leave my classroom. So all of these little things, as part of marketing, actually shape the content that's being done. It makes you the king. It makes the customer, the student, the king, because it's up to you to give your money. They really have to convince you that it's worth it. So I would say, to bring back Adam Smith into the current day situation, even though these people are acting in their own self-interest, trying to make money online, they in effect are actually providing a lot of education, a lot of value to the world today. And secondly, that money is power. One thing that everyone thinks of that as a terrible phrase, like, oh, money is power, that means we should make everyone poor. I don't know. But,
I don't know what they think.
but in the reality, it's a power that each one of you have. Even you don't need to be overly wealthy or extremely wealthy to have power. But just as a consumer, you have that power in guiding things. So in education specifically, this means a lot. This plays into school choice, but also into what I'm talking about now, because when you have power as a student, you get to decide what courses are taught, or the subjects, what the teachers that are good. You get to reward teachers that are good, subjects that are more useful, and everything. But when money is taken away from you and spent then by the state on education, they actually then have the power, and they become the ones that decide the curriculum and decide the teachers and decide everything. So while the fight for school choice and for more options in public schools is a issue for a different time, I'll just say that we should embrace the fact that we have that power today in the courses out there. And we can see this all over, that back to the reputation thing, a lot of people who have been successful then teach their skills to others. And so this is how I'm seeing the apprenticeship. For example, there's one guy that I met in person who gave a talk, and he taught about real estate. And fantastic speaker, really engaging, just incredible, great story. And he sells all kinds of courses on how to learn about real estate and things like that. This is not uncommon online. I'm not trying to say that he's that special. But what impressed me was that his highest level product was for his personal mentorship. That he would actually go with you to make your first purchases and assess he would walk you through the whole process for a year, and if you didn't make money on your first sale or something, you gotta guarantee money back. And so I remembered thinking, as a product, it was an online product that's really expensive. Maybe it was $90,000. But in comparison to a college education, it's not so much. it's cheaper than a lot of them, and with a guarantee. How many colleges give a guarantee that you'll have a job by the end of it?
Trump by any chance?
But yeah, so that's not the only option. There's so much education in all forms. Marketing and real estate and investment have the most, but as people become more educated on just the way that you have to interact online, I'm seeing courses in all kinds of things, from dancing to math or statistics even. Just anything is possible, but I think that the formula is a good one that will encourage more education and more value being created for all of us. So, thank you for listening, and I welcome your questions.
Okay, well, I have a comment first and
Yeah.
a question. I have to congratulate you on how effective your speaking is without the benefit of your notes. Really good.
Thank you.
I'm thinking your dad's probably going to hire you to tune up his economics presentation. Now,
Question there.
I do have a
Please
question.
He's
ask
asking a
question.
question right now,
Now,
and then we'll go
the
to
question I have is, I was under the impression, perhaps incorrect, that Google primarily ordered their search results based on keyword auctions. In other words, who pays the most for the keywords gets at the top of the list.
No, not at all. Not for organic listings. If you
Organic
have
listings.
ads, they have their 2 ads at the top and some on the side. But to be in their organic listings of just content, that's not
okay.
paid at all.
So organic is below the ads.
Yeah,
Okay.
but
so you
it's
pay
just
for
like
the
2,
ads,
so
but
that
down below it's another.
yeah, a whole different.
Interesting.
But even with the ads, companies now lead people more to content rather than a sales page. Because, depends on them, but more and more businesses are finding out that just an article that sells well through a story is actually more effective than this is our product thing.
Well, I can see that because I skip the ads usually.
Yeah. We're trained against them. Yeah.
So Kenli, after we get rid of these student loans to government loans to students from around the world, the whole world, are you going to support your dad when he no longer has a job?
I'm trying to get him to offer all his courses online. I want him to have a longer legacy than the classroom.
And the second question,
Yeah.
follow up on what Phil says. I'm certainly no fan of Google's, but I've watched it work over the years. I used to do advertising for political stuff on Google, and they've eliminated some very key features which allowed you to be real specific about your questions. You used to be able to do some very strict word searches on Google, which you can't do anymore. And to me, it's almost become useless.
As an advertising platform?
Sorry?
As an advertising platform? Or
Oh no, maybe it's great for the advertisers, but for the people searching for things, I'm in
It's been
business.
used-
When I'm searching for things, I found it's gotten less and less useful because they're more interested in directing you to what they think you want to buy rather than the question you actually want an answer to. And so I used to be able to put up a string of 3 or 4 words, and everything that came up had those words in it. And that's no longer true. And now it's very you get 10 million responses, and maybe 10 of them have information you really need on them. So to me, it's become quite useless.
quotes around the 3 words that you want.
They still don't do it. I'm sorry, they still don't do it. Now, I know how to do searches. I've been doing a lot of searches for a lot of years. They still don't give you the specific word string that you're looking for.
Yeah, I can actually reply to that because what Google has been doing in a lot of search platforms is they have tried to move away from specific words because it's very easy to trick an algorithm that search after specific words. Right? Like you just repeat the word over and over again in the article and you would get a higher listing. Google has been trying to move towards more natural language search. So if you ask a question, it will look for articles that answer your question and rank it after user response, more or less. So basically that's the reason why keyword searches don't work anymore, because it has been too easy to trick a keyword search, right? If I'm looking for information on a specific company, the article that would get the highest ranking is the name of the company most often repeated. And nowadays it tries to do more natural language search.
Interesting.
Which means keyword search is sadly no longer as effective, but you are more likely to get something actually useful to your original question.
Less likely.
Joe?
So your presentation is kind of like bringing education used to be in ivory tower, and now it's the internet's getting smarter at distributing that. Do you think that businesses are starting to appreciate people who are educated through the internet or other means? And eventually, if that's so, do you think that there's a bubble and a crash in education?
Yeah, I see the student loan debt bubble as a very threatening one. Delinquencies are increasing regularly. I mean, because it's just not sustainable at this time, with earning less, paying far higher, and being saddled with debt so early on. I see that. I would be very nervous about what will happen with that, especially also because the U.S. government's so dependent on it as well. And back to what you were saying about the ivory tower. So yeah, that's one thing I see great. In the current system, I feel like there's the professionalism gap is shrinking a lot. It's not just one source of information, that there's a lot of many more options. For example, if you want to find a person to fix your car, maybe you're still gonna, if you have a problem with your car, maybe you'll still find someone to fix it, but you could research it a little bit ahead of time, learn something, so that when you talk to them, you're on a better level, and you're less likely to be ripped off. Yeah. So that's something in terms of professionalism, or this gap between professionals and everyone else, I think is decreasing because of this. And thirdly, you mentioned if businesses are going to recognize it more. I think so. Any business that's more forward-thinking will. Personally, I think what I was saying about starting a website and building reputation, I think that is key for people, anyone who wants a career now. Personally, I would recommend any student in college, or even if you decided not to go to college, to build a website in the thing that you want to study. And through the process, you can gain an education, because if you want to do it well, you should be writing an article every day on your subject, doing research into things, every aspect of it, to find content for 365 days of the year. On top of that, do a podcast, which is another great source of marketing, and invite experts to talk with you. You interview experts once a week, and
like Ken does here, right?
Yeah. And dive into, answer questions. Just the process of diving into a subject like that, I think, would be a fantastic way of actually learning the subject. And then at the end, when you apply for a job or something, or whatever you want to do, you have 4 years of content. Let's say, for example, you have a paper trail of how much you know about this subject. So I think it's possible, but not just by learning online. You need to show it, either with documenting with blog or something, or certificates, because a lot of courses now offer certificates. I think you still need to show consistency and growth in some way.
I
Yeah.
have another question. Do you think that colleges will become obsolete in the future?
Maybe not for some subjects that need more hands-on practice, but I think they would have to change dramatically. I think they would be a lot. The way that we know of colleges now, I believe will become obsolete, just because they are not providing the result that they promise for most people. Yeah, just the generalized education is something. If education continues as it is, you can get that through high school. But after that, that's when I think people want to learn something specific and hands-on, more practical. I'm pretty sure it will. Yeah.
I think that the biggest problem is that education's become religion in this country. And any kind of a critic of formalized classroom education and the testing and the pieces of paper you get, you're like a crazy person no one wants to listen to. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't always like this. 40 years ago, they started, colleges and universities started public relations to convince everyone without a college degree, you are never going to get anywhere and you'd never get a good job. And they've been selling that idea for decades, and it's sunk in, and that's a big problem. That's why we have, people with PhDs working at Starbucks because they bought this thing.
I believe that is when I was in high school, it was not even a question. You were going to college anyway, and that's with pretty alternative parents, but educated parents. I mean, like academically.
Stern parents.
Yeah. So, but
Although,
I think that's changing.
Isn't in some cases that more of a supply and demand question?
Not really.
I mean, if
They're
there was-
artificially creating demand by putting all these loans and things into the hands of the people who are not emotionally mature enough or financially educated enough to make decisions with the money. That's what the problem is. That's why we have this
That's such a
$1.6 billion in student debt. And it's the government that is creating that demand by giving, here's money, and the only thing you can spend it on is this thing that we want you to spend it on. They're artificially stimulating the demand for college degrees, and they have as allies all the people who work in colleges and universities whose salaries are contingent of continuing to have this supply of students coming.
You have a point, and it's true that a lot of people don't realize until they have to start paying the student loans that this is even an issue. But I still believe that it's changing just because of hearing enough stories about it. I'm really excited about this new, service or platform called Praxis. It's founded by libertarians on the mainland, and it's trying to create an alternative to the system. And so you apply, it's I think maybe $14,000 for a year, but they guarantee you a job placement afterwards. And I mean, all the reviews that I've found are just incredible, and people can start at 16 even if they are accepted. And so it's a little thing, but I think it's slowly growing as the mentality shifts slightly away from this idea that if you don't have a college degree that you're a failure. I feel like that's changing slightly into looking more at what you actually achieve rather than just the label. Or maybe I'm just being really optimistic, but I believe so. Yeah.
How do you see it from the side of the employer? Because, like, as a person who has worked in a department that was in charge of hiring someone it gives you, as that person who's like tasked by someone who owns the company with getting someone with talent into the firm, it gives you a great deal of security if you can say, well, I hired this person because they have degrees from University X, Y, and Z, who we all know produce good, hard-working people.
Yeah.
How do you replace that system? Because technically a degree, like, I know it as a person, but like someone who's studying at a big named university, or someone who works at a consultancy firm with a big name like Boston Consulting or McKinsey, the reason why you hire them is not because they are so much better than everyone else.
Yeah.
It's to cover your ass, so you can say, well, I hired the best firm.
That will always be the easy option. But for smaller businesses and people who actually want good workers, do you want someone who's entitled and thinks that they know everything, or do you want someone who maybe doesn't have anything to show and wants to learn from you? So I
Comment on that from the standpoint of being an employer and having hire people and manage them. It's like that's all that's worth is your first day on the job.
That's right.
After that, it's all on you. And if you don't live up to that reputation, you're out the damn door. And the person who's doing the hard work, they're getting promoted.
It's true. I'm just thinking from the perspective of the company. Where do I or as an employee who hires other employees, right? Like a classic HR person.
How do you vet an online degree?
So
how do you vet someone?
I think right now we're still in uncharted territory. I think they're not sure yet because things aren't as clear. But with enough. Okay, so one of the things I'm most excited about is a business called Proversity, which creates online courses specifically for certain companies, for example. So Barclays would have a course all for a certain entry-level position. And that, I think, is fascinating because that's the best connection. It's a course, the company believes in it, the student knows that it's training them, and it's the perfect crossover. And unfortunately, that's just one. I haven't seen it more, but I think I have a lot of confidence in the market. I have a confidence in all the different initiatives, and I think with time they will learn to appreciate it. With some subjects, it's already there's not a question. For programming, for example, I mean, a university degree doesn't necessarily mean anything. It's more about they create challenges for you to apply for a job or something. They'll create little tasks or challenges, and people compete, and whoever does the best gets in.
I mean, technically that might even be a new version of entrepreneurship that opens itself up, right? Because like nowadays, it's like one of the biggest challenges we had. We got so many applications that like our first filtering was, well, like where did these people go to? And because like if you get 500 applications as a single person and you have like a week to go through all of them, you don't have the time to actually check out the people individually, right? So like your first filter is, well, what does the company say we do? We only hire people from X, Y, and Z. So basically,
if fewer people go to college, if you're in a hiring environment and 90% of the applicants have college degrees and 10% don't, the 10% who don't are screwed. If you're in an environment where 10% of the people have college degrees and 90% don't, the 90% now you're going to be starting to look at and give them a better chance. The problem is we're overeducated. We're spending trillions of dollars sending people to school who don't know why the hell they're there or what they're going to do with that education. Because they've been sold on this. And as a result, they're walking around with degrees which are virtually worthless.
Here.
Hers was chosen by the Chinese government.
What is it?
Japanese literature.
Oh.
So
Lovely.
against her will.
Yeah, we
completely.
were both in Japanese literature because the government said we need it.
So, oh yeah, I just wanted to touch a bit on you mentioning the actual companies sponsoring or developing some of the materials. I noticed that has been happening on Udacity especially, but also on edX. There are companies that are doing like 4 or 5 courses that they put together, and they're themed together, and I just wanted to mention that. And
Yeah, I
also,
think that's great.
I have actually completed a few things on edX, Udacity, and Coursera, which are some of the major ones. I haven't done anything on Udemy or Khan Academy, although sometimes I've used Khan Academy videos to help with the Coursera course that I'm working on. So I think that's really
Using
cool.
online
how
education
it's,
to help.
It's very much instantaneous, so you can start finding out about something tonight. And then, so if anyone wants to ask me about
Your
that experience, I would be excited to talk about that afterwards. But I really appreciate Kenli's perspective about how all of this stuff is actually affecting how instructors are thinking, you were saying. I thought that was really provocative to think about. So thank you.
You know what I didn't hear, I don't think, was, at least I didn't catch it if you said it, is if you go like kindergarten through K-12, you know, because it seems like that's where everybody says there's this big failure in the government school system. You know, is there anything happening that's actually helping that?
Yeah, that's a whole separate subject. That's the thing, I haven't seen too much. People are still scared. They think that if the kids don't have the standard education, they'll fall behind in other things. Very small groups are finding alternatives. So I would love to see change, because that's where that impacts you the most in your child. So actually, I'm currently, I do marketing for, I have a client now that has online teaching resources, and some are typing.com and edutyping for learning how to type in the classroom, and another is teaching.com. And so we are going to be talking about, they don't have any content right now, so we're going to be talking about educational issues and alternatives, and eventually launch educate.org, which we have the domain for, that hopes to educate more people on alternatives, especially for younger.
Great. One thing that our department found at the College of Business at HPU, that we found a website that will offer to take your class for you. All you have to do is pay them a certain amount of money, and they'll take your class online, and then you get the degree.
Oh my God.
Wow, pretty good. Sweet. Maybe they'll also maybe they'll also hire out to do your job later too.
But that's the key difference here is that is for people who are just trying to get a credit from their college. Those are not people who actually want to learn a skill. They just want to tick the box. They want to get out of there as fast as possible. But now I see things are changing, that people are realizing when they graduate that they don't know what they're doing, that anyway, so the people that I'm surrounded by, maybe it's a select group, but people are constantly seeking out new skills, and they want to learn these things, even not for credit. Most people don't do it for credit. They just want to learn.
I have to share one thing with you. I mean, because I graduated with these guys in 1973 or thereabouts, and I'd done like a co-op program, so I was through engineering school. So I worked half a year every year in the factory that I was going to go work in. And when I got out, I still knew nothing. So I wouldn't assume that you know what you're going to be, doing and what you want to do and all that when you graduate. You still got to learn it on the job in many cases.
Well, in that case, maybe in a lot of cases, it's not necessary to have the theoretical part.
Hey, Kenli, did you find it more profitable in your research to get educated at some sort of skill development or technical university rather than a general educational university?
Well, so right now it all depends on the goal, and back to Sebastian's thing, it depends on how, at this point still, how employers will view it.
Yeah, because if I want to be a welder, I can go to a technical school for 2 years and become the best welder that money can buy, and it could probably cost me, a quarter of what a general
you
university.
have a job right away.
And as soon as I get out, I have a job making, $50,000 a year or whatever. And I'm paying off my student loans immediately.
It's very possible. It depends on.
Yeah, I make $100,000 as well.
So he brings up a quick point here.
So
I read an article. I read an article. I don't know what the actual figures are, but there's only about 20 to 30% of jobs that require college education. So we're educating, like she mentioned, everybody for only 20 or 30%.
What I'd like to do is thank Kenli for her presentation. There's a big dessert table set out there, and please continue the comments and discussion with Kenli so that she doesn't get any dessert. She should.
Yeah,